The word camouflage means to hide or disguise the presence of a person, animal, or object. It's a tactic used mostly by military personnel to remain undetected by the enemy. But it could also be used for truly evil purposes by people you'd least expect. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we'll be diving into the life and times of a man many trusted and held up as a standard in society, Russell Williams. How could a man, the commander of one of the biggest Air Force bases in Canada, and a highly decorated colonel with a career many describe...
How does someone like Russell Williams, a decorated colonel trusted by thousands, hide such darkness? It's chilling to think someone so respected could be so depraved. This case isn't just about crime, it's about betrayal of a nation, of neighbors, of humanity. Let's dive into how this monster fooled everyone.
Russell Williams was born on March 7, 1963, in Broomsgrove, England. Coming from a small family, his parents were David and Christine Williams, with Russell's little brother Harvey being born 2 years later. When Russell was 5 years old, the family became Canadian immigrants, moving to Chalk River, Ontario in 1968. Moving can be tough, especially when it's a new country. But the Williams didn't have to go through all that alone. They met the Savkas, Jerry and Lynn, another married couple, and the two families became very close. A year later, though, their happy tidings would come to an abrupt end. Russell's parents would file for divorce after David Williams was found cheating on Christine with Jerry Savkas' wife, Lynn. However, Christine would then get remarried to Lynn's husband, Jerry. She changed her name to Noni Savkas and moved with Russell and Harvey to a quiet neighborhood in Scarborough, Ontario. Russell was 7 at the time and became known as Russell Savka. You might think that this may have been a moment of darkness for him, but by all accounts, Russell had a good childhood despite his parents' divorce. In fact, reports describe Russell as polite, well-behaved, and a shy child who then on went to become a young man that was self-disciplined. Russell would enroll in the Canadian Forces in 1987, and by 1990, he had received his flying wings and moved to Manitoba, where he served as a flight instructor. The next year was big for Russell. He was promoted to captain and tied the knot with Mary Elizabeth Harriman, an applied science graduate from the University of Guelph. It was an intimate ceremony held in Winnipeg. Over the next decade, Williams' military career saw various changes in postings and promotions. In 1994, he would handle the transport of many important people, like dignitaries and government officials from other countries.
In command of their flight, an officer on his way up in the Canadian Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Russell Williams.
Over the next decade, he would obtain a Master of Defense Studies in 2004 from the Royal Military College with a thesis arguing on the issue of preemptive strikes in the Iraq War. By June of 2004, Russ was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. His career would reach new heights in December of 2005 when he served as the commanding officer of a covert logistics facility in Dubai called Camp Mirage until May 2006. His return to Canada wasn't uneventful, with Williams battling chronic pain. He received various prescriptions, including prednisone, prescriptions that many who knew Williams said that they were the cause of his insomnia. Simultaneously, the Williams sold their home in Orleans, replacing it with a townhouse in Westboro Village, Ontario. Mary Elizabeth was now an Associate Executive Director of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. While they made sure to spend their weekends together, to golf and garden, Russell was yet again mostly alone, despite being a successful married man. Russell's handling of abandonment or loss had been described as intense by his friends and family. As seen when the couple's cat, 18-year-old Courtroom, had to be euthanized. It was a particularly...
William's life looked perfect promotions. A loving wife, even grief over a pet cat. But that's what makes this so haunting. He wasn't a loner or an outcast. He was one of us. How do we reconcile this? The law sees a criminal, but I see a man who wore a mask so well, it fooled even those closest to him.
Before 2007, Russell Williams was a decorated member of the Canadian military with no criminal records whatsoever. However, as they say, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so, in 2007, Russell began breaking into homes near him and his wife's home at Ottawa in 2008. According to reports and evidence, he would scope out his neighbors' homes, making sure that no one was there before entering to steal any female underwear he could find. He would also take personal items. On one occasion, he broke into a 12-year-old girl's home, spending almost 3 hours as he took pictures of himself in her underwear and clothing, or while he pleasured himself on her bed. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting this when I mentioned he'd go on to commit crimes, huh? On another occasion, pictures he took showed him lying on a 15-year-old girl's bed while he pleasured himself as he held up a stuffed bear. Upon his arrest, other pictures were found, showing pictures of him kissing or licking underwear he had stolen. Some of them were stained with blood. There wasn't a search for a prowler in the neighborhood, though, because no one usually noticed their houses had been broken into. Williams even burglarized some of the houses on more than one occasion. Much of the evidence used to convict him in court was from his own stash of pictures, as though he were a scrapbooker taking mementos of his hobby. It also showed the progression of his crimes, from breaking in to dressing himself up in female underwear as part of his odd fetish, or frolicking nude in the bedrooms of young girls' rooms. He began to leave notes behind. On one occasion, he left a note saying, "Merci" on a girl's computer. Then, he moved on to leaving behind items that he used to please himself sexually. But this wasn't enough for Williams. He was just getting started. In July of 2009, he took off his clothes and pleasured himself as he watched an unsuspecting woman take a shower. Then, while she was in the bathroom, he entered her room through the window and stole her underwear. Williams would carry... Russell Williams' first victim was a woman known to the public as Jane Doe. She was a testimony witness at Williams' trial. On September 17, 2009, she had fallen asleep with her infant at home in Tweed when a man identified as Williams broke into her house, binding, blindfolding, and fondling her. He undressed her, took pictures of her naked body, and was in her home for 2 hours before he left, promising that she and her baby would not be harmed. A few hours after this incident, Russell Williams was a member of the planning committee meeting for an upcoming charity event for the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario. It was as though he was two different people in one body. He would go on to assault Lori Massicott in her home just 2 weeks later. It was not the first time he had been in Lori's home, having been there many times before to steal some of her lingerie. Like the first victim, Lori had been asleep on the night of September 30th, 2009, and woke up to someone punching her in the head. Williams proceeded to blindfold and restrain Lori, forcing her to pose in pornographic manners as he took pictures of her. His intent seemed to be more focused on picture taking than it was on physically abusing her. At some point, Williams seemed to show.
These assaults are gut-wrenching. Jane Doe and Lori were attacked in their own homes, and their safety was compromised. Williams didn't just break laws, he shattered lives. Legally, these were lesser crimes compared to murder, but the terror these women felt, that's a life sentence of its own. How could he face his colleagues hours later, smiling, planning charity events?
Drops of water look little until they make up a puddle. Williams's drops of break-ins, trespassing, theft, and sexual assault piled up until they culminated in cold-blooded murder. On November 25th, 2009, Williams took his twisted antics up a notch when he stalked and killed Marie-France Comeau. She was 37 and was a military flight attendant based at the same base where Williams was a wing commander. Marie-France had discovered Williams hiding in her basement at home. Startled, Williams attacked Comeau, striking her repeatedly with a flashlight. Williams rendered her unconscious, wrapped her in duct tape, and for 2 hours, he went on to essay, torture, and torment Comeau repeatedly. He also recorded Comeau's ordeal on a video camera. All of her pleas and cries for help fell on deaf ears. After Williams was done satiating his evil, he placed duct tape over Comeau's nose and watched her die slowly. He then cleaned up the scene of his evil deed and went back to the base as though nothing had happened. It seemed as though Williams's break-in and general criminal activity stopped after he brutally murdered Comeau. His cooling period was short, however, and the fall.
Marie-France Comeau's murder breaks my heart. Colleague, someone who trusted Williams, watched her charred and killed in her own home. The Factith recorded it like a trophy is beyond comprehension. This wasn't just murder, it was evil. Edit. Law can't undo her pain, but must ensure monsters like this never walk free again.
Jessica Lloyd was a 27-year-old living in Belleville, a community not too far from Tweed. On January 28, 2010, Jessica sent a text to a family friend before she presumably turned in for the night around 10:36 p.m. It was the last she was heard of, as she never turned up for work the next morning. Her family, anxious, reported her missing to the police, stating it was out of character for Jessica to not contact anyone about her whereabouts. Unknown to them, Williams had broken into Jessica's home that night, blindfolding her with duct tape and binding her with ropes. He took sexual advantage over Jessica for 3 hours and then took her to his cottage, continuing the torture for another 21 hours. He had promised Jessica he would not kill her, but he hit her with his flashlight and then he strangled her. Like he did with Marie, Williams documented Jessica's torture and death on photo and video. Leaving her body in the garage, he went back to work at the base. He returned to retrieve and dump the body elsewhere 3 days later. At the same time, the Belleville police and the general public were dedicating countless hours and efforts to locate Jessica. At Jessica's home, investigators had identified some unusual tire tracks that Williams had left behind in the snow. With this information, the Ontario Provincial Police searched all cars using the highway close to Jessica's home, looking for a match to the tracks they had found. Williams was one of the motorists in the search, and an officer noted that there was a match with his tire treads. Police placed Williams on immediate police surveillance. His tire treads were eventually matched to the evidence found outside Jessica's home, and when he was asked to report at the Ottawa Police Service headquarters for questioning on February 7, 2010, the interrogation lasted for 10 hours, and after he had been presented with all the incriminating evidence, he finally made a confession. he didn't just confess to Jessica's murder, he confessed to all of his many crimes. Williams gave detailed accounts of his crimes, including all of the tweed fetish break-ins and sexual abuse. He also showed police where his stash of evil was. Memorabilia from all of his crimes were carefully cataloged and hidden inside his Ottawa home and the Tweed cottage. And I'm pretty sure the answers don't matter. Before his hearing, Williams tried to commit suicide and took on a hunger strike. Both attempts were unsuccessful, and he was placed under 24-hour suicide watch and solitary confinement. A grand total of 82 criminal code charges were filed against Russell Williams. He made his first appearance in court on October 7, 2010. On October 18, 2010, Russell Williams pleaded guilty to all the charges. On the first day and over the course of his trial, accounts of other crimes emerged. These include a mother who was attacked while she and her newborn were asleep in the house. It was also revealed that Williams possessed pedophilic tendencies, based on the number of underwear he had stolen belonging to girls as young as 9. Williams' total number of home invasions and break-ins between September 2007 and November 2009 was rounded up at 82. The prosecution revealed that Williams even kept tabs on police reports of his crimes. He had a system for his crimes, logging and documenting details about how they went down, like a shopkeeper doing inventory. Some of the evidence, such as photos of Williams wearing the underwear he had stolen, was released to the press and published in papers. On October 19, 2010, Williams was found guilty of all charges filed against him. 3 days later, he was sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms. Some accounts hold that Williams seemed to show remorse for his actions. He wrote letters by hand to the parents of Jessica Lloyd and Marie-France Comeau, as well as his wife, regretting the shame he had put her through and asking her to take care of their cat Rosie. Marie Elizabeth filed for divorce from him in 2010, and their marriage was annulled in 2014. Initially imprisoned at Kingston Penitentiary, Russell Williams is now incarcerated.
Justice was served, but it doesn't erase the pain. 2 lives lost, countless others scarred. Williams' letters of remorse. They feel hollow when you think of Jessica and Marie-France. This case reminds us, evil doesn't always look evil. It can wear a uniform, a smile, a title. We must stay vigilant for the victims, justice, and humanity.